Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening. We are honored and delighted to see you all here. Once again, it's another year of shaping the future, this time online, but live. Shaping the Future has one objective, to inspire you, to inspire us, to enable all of us to wake up tomorrow and really believe that we can do something about education, that we can transform education and provide to all learners, regardless of geographies or socioeconomic conditions, the education that they do deserve and they are really expecting us to provide. A unique value of shaping throughout the 10 years that we do shaping has been the fact that we provide a stage for people from all over the world and across industries. And this time, with all the online problems we see, like we just had a technical issue, we do see a huge value. This time, we are bringing together to this live online stage people from literally the 6 continents. Australia, US, Japan, Brazil, Korea, Germany, really everywhere, and Israel, of course. I'm sitting in Israel now. And we are bringing people that are committed to this transformation. We are bringing people today that are actually doing things. Thought leaders, practitioners, developers, principals, students, people that are decided that this year and a half of crisis, they've learned, they have insights, and they have what to say and to provide to inspire us. The last 18 months, I don't need to tell all of you, we've passed through unprecedented forced experience that on one hand scared us a lot, on the other hand allowed us to learn. Shaping this year chose to focus on the lessons learned. The crisis, the problems, all the people that suffered, we heard enough. Let's look at what we can learn to move forward. And especially one beautiful thing that has happened, we saw a lot of global coalitions to meet the new challenge, to overcome this new challenge. So Warshavsky, that very soon will be taking the stage, had an amazing idea now 1 year ago, which is a global movement called the Unboxing School Movement, which is a worldwide call for actions for those who care and are committed, actually all of you that are here today, to join forces and try to provide significant change in educational practices and to try to meet them, especially the redefined needs triggered by COVID-19. So I spoke enough. Again, thank you so much to everyone that is going to contribute to this conference. There's no words. We feel emotional to see you all here. Thank you so much. Thank you for the audience that is joining us. And I'm going to now pass the microphone and bring to the online stage Avi Warshavsky, CEO of Mindset, founder of the GEZ Awards community, and the initiator of the Unboxing School Movement. Avi.
Thank you, Cecilia, and really great to see all familiar faces here. And I'm actually looking forward to this interesting sessions we're going to meet this afternoon, at least in our end, this is an afternoon. And I would like to dedicate the next minutes really to give sort of a picture about the unboxing movement, the Unboxing School Movement, which we are honored today to have with us some of the advisory board members and to hear their perspective as well during the day. And as Cecilia was telling, this is an initiative we started with partners in Israel and outside Israel about a year ago. And the story that we are telling about this initiative as we go crystallize more and more. So even the members, I think, that are already came across this movement, I think will hear the slight more accurate story now than the one we were telling in the beginning. And the goal of this movement is mainly to create a transformation in schools based on what happened in the last almost 2 years. And speaking about transformation in schools, we must remember that if we want to say something about the efforts to do transformation in schools in previous generations, we might find ourselves arrogant and even pathetic. And in a way, the sentiment that finds school as a place that is not perfect, that should be modified and should be corrected, is as old as schools itself. And I think we can start from Cato the Elder, the guy that we see on the slide, and he has a very interesting quote about his observation about the teachers of his kids, and he in a way took out his kids from school. The schools for him was based on slaves that were the teachers. There will be some who will say that today, in a way, there still are in some places. And the teachers were, from the perspective of Cato, not preparing the kids to the world outside. The education that they gave was not relevant enough. The motivation was not there. And in a way, he decided to do like a homeschooling, we would call it today. And in a way, the same sentiment that Cato had, we could find some similar elements during the history. It could be Pink Floyd with The Wall, or John Dewey and his progressive perspective, or other thinkers. And if we are speaking about modifying or creating transformation in school, we must ask ourselves, why is it so difficult? Why most of us who tried never succeed to do it? And I think there might be a different answer during the generations, but at least in our generation, I think there is a real conflict between two kinds of learning. One is the one that happens inside school according to the tradition way we manage schools, and the other one is the one that have developed in the 2 decades that we are living in the internet space. And in a way, outside schools, every element that structures education, it could be knowledge or memorizing or ways that we express ourselves, have changed dramatically. But inside schools, we stayed more or less in the same way schools were designed decades ago, at least even more maybe. And the change that is now about to happen, or the one that when we're saying transformation in schools, we're speaking about the paradigm shift. And a paradigm shift is not a pleasant thing. You cannot really plan to disrupt schools. You cannot plan disruption in general. Usually we need an external conflict that will force us to do it. And I think maybe another barrier that was there always and maybe is now different is the fact that when we are starting to dream about a new kind of school, we might fall into a rabbit hole of fantasy of utopia. And as the utopia became to be more and more big and ambitious, the way that we can see to make it happen is getting away from us. And in this sense, I think we might have chance to do things differently now that the ancestors and the people that tried to modify schools before and could not have. And this happens probably thanks to the fact that what happened in the last 2 years was mainly a drama in the field of habits. And we can tell the whole story of COVID-19 as a story of habits. We had a habit that learning occurs when we are all in the same time, in the same place, and we discovered, we were forced to discover that we can change this habit. Or we had a habit that adults are teaching kids, and this is the way learning is done in schools, and we discover that it can be done differently. And those habits, in a way, opened huge barriers. And if we are going back to the challenge of sketching an utopia around schools, we tasted all those ambitious things that if someone would have told us 3 or 4 years ago that this will be the case, we could not believe. And of course, the taste was not noble. It was not like we did not reach to a utopian school, but we reached to a point that we understand how things done, how does it feel to learn, for instance, in a place that uses time and space differently. And this opens great gates. And I think mainly about 3 families of habits that I would like to go over very quickly. One about the tension between the responsibility of the kid or the student and the system, the teachers, the family. The other one is about time and space. And the last one is about technology. And starting with technology, what happened in these 18 months is mainly that we are all became to be early adopters. And we crossed a barrier that really enabled us to do something which is much more important than using technology. We crossed a barrier that in a way helps us to open a window between the culture of school and the culture of internet, which is all around us. And this is a key, I think, for really narrowing the gap between the world inside schools and outside schools. The other aspect of time and space, when we speak about time and space, it's not just a technical aspect. Bakhtin, that we see on the slide, described a notion that he took from physics that he called chronotop. The chronotop is a merge of time and space together. And what it claims is that we usually don't see time and space separately. Like imagine yourself in a church, for instance. You're not looking just on the space of the church, you're looking also in the time of the prayer and the ceremonies and the state of which we are in. Or think about a marketplace for stocks. Again, the time and the space are the ones who are creating what's happening there. And obviously school. And school is a very unique merge of time and space, which is stronger, much stronger than our intentions. And when we are entering this merge of time and space, we are entering sort of a role-playing, which defines a lot of what we intend and the way we are behaving. And again, this gate that was open enabled us now to see it differently. And last, and maybe the most important one, is the tension between childhood and adulthood. And as we know, being a child was not defined in the same way during the generations. A great example for this is this artwork of Bruegel that we can see that some small people in the corner of the picture were dressed like an adult, but actually they're very small and tiny because they're kids. But in the Middle Ages in Europe, kids were treated from the age of 7 like adults. There was not really a distinction. And as some historians showed, the childhood was invented during the Renaissance, at least in Europe again. It was reinvented because we had childhood in Rome and in Greece and the ancient Israeli culture, but in a way disappeared with the reading and writing, and came back to us through technology with the print. This is at least the common story, and technology has a huge effect on the definition of where we are stopping to be kids and taking responsibility, and when we are still dependent on adults that are teaching us. And I think this tension has a great deal to do with learning. And this poem, which is extremely popular among educators, I won't read it all, but I think presents very clearly this point. Teacher, teacher, tell me truth. Tell me what I ought to do. Teacher, where my book? Tell me where I ought to look. Tell me what to feel, how to think, when to eat, what to drink, etc., etc. And I'm jumping to the other column. For I'm small and I'm weak. Without your permission, I cannot speak. And I think those lines really express the challenge from the perspective of learning, because as we treat kids as smalls, their ability to learn become smaller and smaller, and something very important of what we try to educate to is disappearing. And if I have to generalize those three aspects, I think they all have something to do with the tension between schooling and learning. Like schools are doing those two things. We get used to mix them. Learning is really about learning. Schooling is about all the rest. It's about discipline. It's about some of the social aspects. It's about reporting to the system. It's about many other aspects. And sometimes when we are merging them too strongly, schooling is disturbing learning, and learning is disturbing schooling. And the process that we're going through, in a way, opens us a gate to really separate them, at least more than we could use. And looking even in the business aspect of EdTech in the last year and a half, we can see that some of the most interesting deals that were happening were about exactly changing the ratio between schooling and learning. Just to remind a few of them, Renaissance Learning acquired Nearpod, and in a way merged a very traditional schooling solution with something which has a lot to do with learning. Kahoot acquired Clever, like the other way around, bringing something totally outside the system and acquiring something from the system. And we can see lots of more, let's say, institutional investments in Roblox, which is originally a solution that was not designed to be inside institution. And all those examples are examples of something that really changes the ratio between learning and schooling. So if we see those opportunities right now, why do we need a movement? And I think, of course, although we see all those sentiments and all those signs, we still have a lot of barriers, especially about the inertia. Systems love to go back to the place they've been before, and we really have to find ways to cope with this inertia by bringing back the weight to the motivation of creating a change in schools. And this is like the rationale of Unboxing School movement. And the principle of the movement is mainly about trying to focus, using the same language of habits, and trying to focus on a very strong habit that can bring a change. Bringing startup in, assuming that startups has a unique way to help those changes happen, and lots of collaborations. And I think, like, emphasizing the startup point, it's both the solutions, like startups as the ones I mentioned, can really show the way of changing the ratio between schooling and learning, but it's also about the way of solving problems and the methodologies that are extremely relevant for change processes. And the movement is based on three perspectives. In the wide one, is about bringing this voice to the public. And in the inner one is about actual change in actual schools. And in between is based on alliances and collaborations between organizations. And I'll go very quickly about each one of them. Speaking about the public voice, I think one of the models that we are looking at is the Meatless Monday. And it's a very good illustration to the way we are using the phrase movement. We really try to bring this idea to the wide awareness through a very simple kind of activities, hoping that they will take us further and deeper afterwards to the other circles. And we hope bringing parents, which became to be much more involved during this year, and to really ignite a bottom-up energy around the movement. We have an extremely interesting advisory board. Some of them will be with us today, and I think it's a very important part of the story in order really to direct the way we are going in the right ways. Both people from policy making and media and edtech and so forth. And so this is about the public voice. As to the alliances, we try really to bring together three kinds of groups, educational organizations that each one is already involved in different ways of changing education and different words, but still aiming to a very similar places. Startup community, which I think by nature are directed to those changes, and educators, early adopters. I think those are the most important partners in those alliances. And what we hope to do with those groups, and we started to do with some of the groups in Israel and in Brazil and in some other places as well, is first of all to share knowledge between the groups. If all of those groups are involved in generating change, there is a lot of value in just sharing what each one is doing, and then identifying areas to partner and to collaborate, and also to co-brand. Like, I think doing an effort with 10 schools or with 100 schools is one thing, but doing an effort that touches thousands of schools in different flavors, in different ways, it's much more powerful. So this is like the alliances that we try to support. And last, the super user, which are basically schools, but it's more like squads of parents and students and teachers and entrepreneurs that are surrounding schools and trying to help school to modify itself. And we are working specifically with 10 schools in Israel right now, but some of our partners, both in Israel and outside Israel, are working with much more. And we see here like three main goals with the super users. First of all, creating sort of a playbook, which will include the best practices and the methodologies and success stories and tools that will be very practical to expand the movement and the change. The other aspect is a process that is done in each school. In the mindset case, is based on habits. And last, the encounter between the schools and the startups, which we mentioned before. And I'll say a few more words about the habit change process, because this is like the core of what we already have done in schools. And using this language of habits, we find it very effective. As we know, in the last decades, there are lots of literature about, popular literature about habits, most of it dedicated to individuals, but some of it for organizations. And I think what's good about this language is the fact that it's a very behavioristic language. You don't have to identify yourself with each ideology. It's a very clear mechanism and a very easy way to describe what's happening. And we try to identify in each school a pain point that connected to one of the habit clusters. Could be in the area of social emotional learning, or in the area of communication, or in the area of independent learning, etc. And then try to modify the habit or generate a new habit, which is going to be based on the triggers that are creating the habit, like time and space, or interaction with other people, or emotional states, etc., which usually generate a key habits. And a key habit is an habit that it's like this string in the sweater that you are pulling it, and then you are bringing the whole sweater apart. It's a habit that affects much more than just the direct aspect of the habit, but also many other aspects as well. So I think I'll stop right now and move back to Cecilia and to the next extremely interesting session. Thank you very much.